Hello people, just me with a short video this time. Some user tips about Nitro engine tuning, and that comes from me, who are totally beginner. Ha ha ha. Well, when you start to tune the engine, it's very easy to get loose. You lose control. What way have you tuned? How much have you tuned? How far am I from the default settings? So I'll show you this little tips that I want to start using now as a beginner. But first, here you can see a picture of the flywheel. It's on the left side there, and the engine block on the right side. And I just marked some blue colors, black colors there. When these two align, we have the piston at the drop button center. But you can also feel the flywheel that is moving easy. When you stop the engine, you should always check that the piston at the bottom center. And if you remove the glow plug, you can also look down the glow plug hole and see that. But next, let's look at the idle gap screw. The HoBao Hyper VS2 Nitro manual for the 21 engine says that you should have the idle gap at 1.0 millimeter, both on breaking in the engine and later. So I removed the air filter, watched down the carb, and I measured the idle gap. You find some needles or something and measure the diameter of the needles, so you don't find one needle that's about 1 millimeter and one needle that's about 0.5 millimeters. And then you can adjust the idle gap with this screw and set a mark for the location where you have 1.0 millimeter idle gap, and on the left you see the 0.5 millimeter idle gap. So when you start up the engine, you can look at these marks to see where you have the idle gap, and when you tune you can also see where you are. Some people say that it should maybe be more near 0.5 millimeter idle gap when the car is broken in and you are tuning it and it's warm, but HoBao user manual says it should be 1.0 millimeter. So we just have to try and see what works best. Maybe something in between. But I hope this can help when I'm tuning so I don't lose control where I am. So this is the idle gap screw. The next is the high speed needle. I also marked this, and the HoBao user manual say that when the engine is broken in, you can lean this a bit out, or in really, and set it at 2 turns out from bottom. When you break in the engine, is it at 2.5 turns out from bottom. So since I now have driven this engine about 5, 6, 7 tanks, and I believe the engine is now broken in, I now next want to start to tune this engine. I've set the high speed needle at 2 turns out from bottom and mark the position here. So when I start to tune and when I go more lean or more rich, I can see about how much I'm from this position that the HoBao says should be the position after the engine is broken in. Yes, but we anyway have to tune. And some people say don't look at the needles that much, listen to the sound and watch how the car looks like when going, and hear the speed, hear the sound, yes. So look for smoke and these things, and don't bother so much about the needles exactly position, because that will change with many other things like the weather, temperature and humidity, what they call it, and driving location and so on. But I marked this position, high-speed needle, at 2 turns out from bottom, so I know where we start when we tune, and I can see how much I go from this position. And the last needle is the low-speed needle. HoBao user manual says when the car is broken in, you can have this at flush setting. And so I set this now at flush, and I mark the position. So also here I can see how much I move, either reaching it or lean it out. So now we have some sort of getting the car back to default settings with a idle gap screw, high speed needle and low speed needle. So it should be quite easy to set them up and start to tune the car from here and see what we end at. Also, I tried to make a sort of a plan for this new experience for me driving Nitro cars. And the plan include, you can look at it here, but it's on Norwegian. But first you have setup. It just tells a bit about the glow plugs I'm using and the default positions for the needles. There you have the startup, including also starting up the engine, what things I got to do there. And then you have the tuning part, and this tuning is based on a YouTube video I watched for a few days ago. It looks very promising, so I will try to use the same method for tuning the car. I will give you that link. It also can read it at the bottom of this tuning part there. Just notice that when you watch this video, when he start to tune the low speed needle and also the high speed needle, it almost sounds like the idle is dropping a bit when he's leaning out the high speed and the low speed. But that's not really what happened, if I got it correct. I think it's just that the car still got this 2-stage idle. So when he's doing a fast run and stop, you hear the idle is a bit high and then drops. But it looks like when he's tuning the high speed needle, leaning out the high speed needle, it looks like the idle drop. But I believe that's just the 2-stage, and so the car automatically dropped the idle a bit after a few seconds. And the same when he's later tune the low speed needle, he lean out the low speed, and it it looks like the idle drop a bit then also, but again, I believe it's just a 2-stage idle. He fixed the 2-stage idle at the end, you will see. So it looks like a good tuning video. Look in the description to get to that. And the last is the stop the car, or what to remember then. So I will try this plan next time I can drive the car outside and start to tune it and see if this works out for me. I hope that. Also in the previous video I had a bit problem with getting fuel into the engine and carb, but I'm not sure if that's really correct. Maybe it was just me. I could not watch the fuel moving in the tube, fuel tube, because the tube is not completely transparent. It's more gray. And I also couldn't watch the fuel entering the carb or the cylinder when I removed the glow plug. But maybe that's not possible to watch really. So I believe when I blow into the fuel tube, I remove the fuel tube from the exhaust, and when I blow into that 3 times, I believe some fuel is entering the carb and the engine. So that's I just gonna try next time. So maybe it was just me not knowing exactly what was happening when I had this problem with getting fuel into the engine. So that's all for this video. I come back next time when it's better weather and I can start to tune the car outside. Bye bye.